On this edition of the Watchman Brief, we tackle one of the toughest topics and the most difficult thing for people to understand when it comes to war. Many people say they're afraid of, oh my God, World War III is going to kick off. Spoiler alert, you're already in it. But it doesn't look like war that you've become accustomed to. It's very different. Our guest today, Casey Fleming, the author of The Red Tsunami, is going to break all of that down for us. The Watchman Brief is straight ahead. Stay tuned. And welcome back to another edition of the Watchman Brief. This is a special edition combined with our sister publication, Ripped from the Headlines. My name is R.C. Williams. Welcome back to the show. The show is brought to you by Sherlock Market Research. Is it a gold mine or a landmine? You need to find out for your business, brand, or product. Go ahead and visit investinanswers.com for more information on audience intelligence and how it can help your business. So earlier, we talked to Casey Fleming. We were at AmFest in December, and we had a short version of the interview with Casey about what was called at the time the survival guide for people, the book, The Red Tsunami, which is actually coming out next week. And we knew that we had to bring Casey back to the Watchman Brief and Rip from the Headlines to really dive into this topic. So Casey has been super busy leading into the book's debut next week. Let's bring him back on stage. Casey Fleming, welcome to the Watchman Brief and Rip from the Headlines.
Thanks for having me, RC.
Yeah, Casey, thank you so much for making time for us. I know the schedule is crazy leading into the book. Congratulations, though, by the way. We see things are certainly trending in the right direction, which is good news, given, I think, to some degree, the level of apathy that people have had over the years. It's almost like we've been the frog in the pot. So here's what I'd like to do, Casey. For people who missed our interview from AmFest, can you give us some background on Casey Fleming and then talk to us about the genesis for the book, The Red Tsunami? And once we do that, I'd really like to dive into the parts that you feel are most important. We know the whole book is important, but the parts that are most important, and let's deep dive on some of those things, please.
Absolutely. My background is through business. It's technology. I founded IBM's cyber division back in the day, the early cyber division. Ran a global consulting unit for Deloitte on risk and strategy. Done several Silicon Valley turnarounds, and then got into this counterintelligence about a little over 15 years ago. Because what I determined was what the biggest threat is, who's the enemy behind all of this cybersecurity threat and risk and so on. Who's the enemy? And the enemy actually was the Chinese Communist Party. And so we've been working this problem. I run a counterintelligence firm for the past 16 years. And we advise, government, military, Fortune 500, Global 1000. So the big picture is that is a strategy to destroy the United States for total takeover by the communist regime, the Chinese Communist regime. So the biggest issue is, you are in World War III today. You sense it. You kind of think you know it, but I give you the details and let you know exactly where you stand. So you are in World War III. When COVID hit, everybody said, I really want somebody to stand up and tell me the truth. What is really going on here? Because something isn't right with COVID and the announcement and the lockdowns and all that stuff. And then all these different movements came out immediately after COVID hit. They rolled out like clockwork. So everybody says, hey, somebody please tell me the truth and stand up. Nobody did. And I never wanted to write this book. I still don't, but I did. And I wrote this book for you, the public, because this war is the people's war, as been described by the chairman of the Chinese Communist Party. The strategy is called unrestricted war. Unrestricted war basically means use all means and any means necessary to weaken your enemy, just short of conventional war. So the plan is to weaken every citizen and attack every citizen by over 100 different methods of warfare. And I'll go through a few of them so you kind of get the idea. But that's really what's going on. You are in World War III. You sense it. but nobody will tell you the truth. The directors of the FBI, previous director Christopher Wray, for the past 5 years has beaten the drum. The biggest threat to the United States, the single biggest threat to the future of the United States, is the Chinese Communist Party. Current FBI Director Patel said the same thing. But they don't give any details. They just say, hey, it's a bad thing, but there's no details because they don't want the public to panic. My take on it is your government has not helped you. They put you in this situation and they put you on the front lines of this war. And they facilitate the enemy in their growth and attacks on you and your family. So what do the attacks mean? Number one, biological warfare. That's COVID. But it's not just COVID. What about COVID-2, COVID-3, other types of bioweapons that are absolutely under development? What about drug war? Drug war, fentanyl. Well, we know the number to be double what the government reports. It's more like 150,000 a year. So what an efficient way to kill and murder military-aged young men and women every single year. 150,000. Let's break that down. That's the equivalent of 2 737s going down every single day. 350 family funerals every single day by your enemy who is murdering our youth, our children, the future of America, our future soldiers, our future business leaders, our future church leaders, everything. Why is that even allowed? So let's break that down further. Remember that American Airlines regional jet that went down in DC, Black Hawk helicopter hit it. That is 1/3 the size of one 737. So that's the equivalent of 6 of those going down every single day. And that accident was in the news cycle. That American Airlines regional jet was in the news cycle for 3 weeks. So why are you not hearing about this, about the murders of Americans every single day? Let's break that number down even further. World War II. We lost 150,000 soldiers average per year in World War II. It was on every piece of the newspaper, every paragraph, every page, every newsreel. It was World War II. Why are you not hearing about the world war that involves fentanyl as a key driver and a key military weapon to kill off young Americans, mostly young Americans? So if you're not hearing about that in mainstream media and in your media source, I would recommend you get a new media source. Other drugs, carfentanil is 100 times worse than fentanyl. Fentanyl is 100 times worse than morphine. Then you've got nitazines, xylazines. You've got marijuana. It's not the innocuous marijuana because American growers use extreme developed Chinese herbicides and fertilizers that are driven and engineered to be very carcinogenic. Not to mention there's over 300 grow farms, CCP grow farms, that are growing this in Oklahoma alone. The same number in Maine, and the same number in California, and a few more in Colorado, and so on. So
Casey, I'm sorry. Can I stop you for a second? Because
Sure.
This is important and you're on a roll, but I want to go back to something that you mentioned at the beginning. And I'm not asking you to name any more names than you already have. But what I want to understand with what you said about Christopher Wray and the agency saying, we don't want to panic people. I'm going to ask a tough question, and I know you'll answer it in an effective manner. And then I want you to continue on this road with the drugs, because I think that people understanding this non-conventional warfare, and they'll slip it into your food or what you drink or your mind, however they can get to it. Casey, what are the chances that the people who would tell us, oh, we didn't say anything because we didn't want to panic people, is part of the CCP's warfare to find the quislings or the people that they can pay off or placate in some way to basically work for the enemy?
That's exactly right. And those we call captured elites in government, in Congress, in federal, state, local government, in business, anybody who's in the way that can facilitate the CCP's mission to take over with communism. So 100%. So further on in the drug war, against every citizen, every family. There's babies dying of fentanyl because they're getting a hold of it. So you're in World War III. So the next is vape. Vape is a drug because the burners in the vaping mechanisms are carcinogenic. They're made out of cadmium. The fluid is either suspended in formaldehyde. Yes, that is the death, what they embalm you with, whether you're a human or whether you're putting in a lab rat. So that or a derivative of antifreeze. So, and it's all by design. The last thing I'll talk about is digital fentanyl, which is social media, because that includes dopamine in the brain and so on. So the next one is cognitive war. If you can take over the mind and control the mind and once you do control it, it's done. It's over. The chances of going back are, less than 10% of saying, oh, wow, I guess I was completely controlled. So it's called cognitive war, the battle for the mind. And so when you see social media, you see this thing called TikTok and you think it's just this innocuous, fun little app. Well, it's not. It's a military weapon, a weaponized military weapon and Trojan horse. So number one, open up the minds, destroy critical thinking, put in propaganda enough times to where, human beings, if you hear a propaganda enough, it becomes the truth. And it destroys your ability to reason. It destroys your critical thinking to be able to say, this is real, this is not, and so on. But TikTok is alive and well. And if I were president, I would have absolutely banned it at midnight when I took office and replaced it with a US non-Silicon Valley driven, large tech driven social media app. It would be a social media app driven by the people and the Constitution. So that's what we're facing. And there's education war. There's cyber war. Cyber war is a one-to-many type of a war where you can actually, have one guy penetrate many different networks, many different devices, and so on. So another thing with cyber war is that people don't talk about is that the Chinese Communist Party and the Russians have gone in and put kill switches through our critical infrastructure. That's electricity, water, internet, natural gas, gasoline, pipelines, all that's refineries. All that. So cyber war is very critical. We've got education war. We've got economic war, political war, culture war, religious war, even spiritual war. So all these are different types of war. There's over 100 different methods, but those are the main ones that are really penetrating each American and their family and so on. I would like to say that the book, it's actually not a book. It's an expose and a survival guide. It just doesn't alert you and inform you. It actually gives you the tools, what you need to be doing going forward. So you're part of the solution and you're protecting yourself and your family, because your government has not done it and your military is not on tap to do it. This war is focused on you directly, and it takes your action to fix it. It's not in the White House. It's not going to be solved in the White House. It's only going to be solved in your house. So back to you, RC. Thanks for having this.
Yeah, Casey. So thank you for doing that. I want to go, before we get into some of the solutions, and I know there's some other things that are prevalent here. I'd like to talk about the psyche for a moment of the Chinese, right? Because how do we get here? Now, I grew up in San Francisco. So most of my friends growing up, their parents were first generation over. So I dealt with a heavy, Chinese influence and everything like that. So I understand some things culturally about the Chinese that some people probably don't in how they operate. But I've read China's 2049 plan, so I understand their 100-year plan, and they're pretty blatant about what they say they're going to do with the Sino-century and stuff like that, Casey. But can we get for a minute into the psyche of the Chinese and how they seem to be able to maximize the frog in the pot with us to the degree that most Americans for decades really didn't see this coming at all? Like, how are they built? How is the CCP built psychologically? And then how did they take advantage of Americans, whether it was what they did in the Clinton administration or whatever the case may be? How does their psyche work? And then how did we get kind of suckered into this thing in the first place?
Well, there has to be a definition. China is two parts. You have traditional Chinese people who are great, wonderful people who want to be free. And then you've got the dark mafia diabolical regime called the Chinese Communist Party. So they are the most dark, the most diabolical, and you are doing business with them when you buy any goods or services from China, and you're accelerating your own demise by purchasing those goods and services. So inside their brain, we can't even comprehend it from the West. We grew up in a free world. We grew up with God and country, and so on. They didn't. They grew up with a communist regime that is in complete and total control, and they have zero, actually negative value for human life. In fact, the Chinese Communist Party has murdered more of their own people than double all the other communist competitors combined. That's Stalin's regime, Lenin's regime, and so on. So this is the most formidable enemy that we've ever had on the face of the earth. They are coming after all free world nations, the U.S. being the most important to them. They've just defined us for decades that we are their mortal enemy and the only thing standing in the way of every Chinese person to participate in the quote Chinese dream. So we can't even comprehend the loss of life. Now remember, they've developed COVID. They're developing COVID-2, COVID-3, and other engineered bioweapons. So that's not to, those are not great looking clothes that we're buying from them, or, light fixtures or plumbing fixtures or anything. It's what these guys are doing behind it. So we've been duped. All Americans have. Those on the left have been played. Those on the right have been played, as well as the center. And my take on it is that we all share a common enemy together who is in the process, very mature process of destroying us. Well, where are they along that line? What percentage? I don't say percentage. I use their terms. The CCP calls it death by 1,000 cuts. And there are about 950 plus cuts in on the death of freedom and the death of the United States. So this fight it has to be at the individual level, the public level. And that's the only thing that's going to save us, is to get informed. And by the way, your enemy doesn't want you to be informed. And that also goes for the compromised. We call them captured elites in government and in business and Wall Street, captured elites that are actually facilitating this demise of democracy, freedom, and so on, which, by the way, was presented to us by God and guaranteed by the U.S. Constitution. So that's really what's going on behind the scenes.
So Casey, thank you for that. Here's what I'd like to do before we jump into solutions. I do have one more thing, because as we're doing the show now, Juliana and I just came off of a two-part series in Southwest Florida where we talked about the threats and benefits of AI. And I posed a question to the audience, and I'd like for you to talk about this a little bit. So I positioned it as, these things will do whatever, whoever controls them, they will do whatever those people tell them to do. Casey, you've written the survival guide, so to speak, for this. I'd like for you to talk about what happens if the book comes out and most people don't take action. What do we have to look forward to from now until, let's say, 2030 or 2031? If people remain inactive and non-engaged with this issue, what are things going to look like?
The U.S. will turn into Cuba, Venezuela, CCP China, Russia back in the day, the total oppression and murder. If you don't do what we tell you to do, we're just going to kill you. Horrible economy. You won't be able to, there's no freedom. That's what we're talking about. This is the death of freedom. And all the ancestors gave you freedom, and it's now your turn. And it's only going to be fixed, not from the White House, but from your house. So that's what you have to look forward to. And by the way, none of those have ever been successful, because guess what? All the power is at the top and in the very few elite at the top of that communist regime. It's very serious. You go, oh, well, that's communism. Here's the problem. If you want to get into semantics and into defining communism and so on, then you're already part of the problem. You've already been compromised. So it's not about definitions and lexicology. It's about what the heck's happening on the ground and happening to everyone else. It's that serious. We discussed it opening up this interview. We discussed it, how serious it is with, come on, bioweapons, with drug warfare, fentanyl, and so on. So it's absolutely that serious. And the infiltration, Venezuela was the CCP's forward operating base in the Western Hemisphere. Iran is a CCP operating base, forward operating base in the Middle East. So it is that serious. You're in World War III, and it's to weaken the enemy from the inside, and kill their will to fight, kill their desire to fight, and actually kill them if they can actually do that. Back to you.
Casey, it is interesting that you talked about that. When I've looked at this, and we talked about this offline too, is the psychological component of this. I think many Americans just weren't designed or built for. As you mentioned, we've grown up and lived in a free country. We haven't had to deal necessarily with these types of things. Our government has agencies that go and do these things in the defense of the nation, for lack of a better term, but we haven't had to deal with them necessarily turned in on us. And one of the research pieces that Juliana did, and we worked on for Sherlock, was what happened when the Smith-Mundt Act was basically neutered by Barack Obama. That allowed Voice of America, Radio Marti, and those others that were supposed to be outward-facing engines to be turned in on the American people. And it seemed to start this rapid decline where being able to discern truth from propaganda, from fiction, from something that's been weaponized has become difficult for people, let's say over the course of 14 years. I think it's been 14 years since that was the case. So I asked the question earlier. I want to frame it again, and I think you may have answered it before, but I want to see if there's anything missing here. Casey, how did the American people get kind of sent down this road to the point where many of them are, I'd say, blissfully unaware, but either don't see it at all, or have become so manipulated by it that they don't know what to do? And the reason I'm asking the question again is because I want to give people nuggets as we go into solutions on how to stop that from happening to them, but then also to stop it happening from others around them.
Well, it's death by 1,000 cuts, right? So you get cut. Every time you get cut, you don't go to the emergency room, but it smarts and you'll get over it, right? And so after 1,000 of those, you're dead. And that's really what's happening. Everything's below the surface. And so there's a lot of propaganda. It's that China is better than the US. It's a much better system, all that other stuff. And that's what they're teaching our kids in middle school. They're teaching our kids in high school because they are compromised. Colleges are hugely compromised. In fact, there was a study that was done recently, a poll by Rasmussen, and did 1,500 Gen Zs and Gen Xs, and they want 51% said they want a democratic socialist in the White House in 2028. So that means you have a problem. You, the individual, you as the public, you got to make sure that your kids are educated and let them know that, Marxism, socialism, communism are all part of the same animal. And it's anti-God and anti-Christ, because the Chinese Communist Party and communism is a religion, and it says you must worship the supreme leader, the chairman of the Chinese Communist Party. No other religions are allowed or recognized. And in fact, they are persecuted. Well, here's the point. That means it's, there's only one God, and that means it's anti-Christ and it's anti-God. So if you're anti-Christ and anti-God, you know what that means. So if you actually are a Christian and you've made the decision to be Team God, then you've already made the decision. You can't be Team God and believe in God and also have democratic socialism, which is communism. Just another word for all these semantics are weaponized and hijacked terms to placate you. Like I said, everybody's being played. It doesn't matter whether you're left, right, or center, you're being played. We are all Americans. We are all on the same team. We are all on the same fight. We have much more in common together than we do with our enemy, and we share that common enemy. So we have to unite. The enemy, by the way, doesn't want you to be informed, and that's number one. And number two, if you become informed, they can't afford to have you unite and take action. So let's talk about the book really quick. The book covers all of this and a lot more. Incidentally, I am very happy to report that it just made number one on Amazon in our category, which is national security and national and international security. But so the point is, if you're a plumber or a firefighter or a teacher or a Wall Street guy or a business guy or a businesswoman, don't think, oh, well, that doesn't apply to me. It does apply to you. Don't be confused just because we made number one in our category. And by the way, number one, before the book even comes out, says a lot of American people are aware of it. They're salivating for this book. They made it number one. I sure didn't. But I did my job. I based it on counterintelligence. I connected the dots on counterintelligence. I did it for God and country. I didn't do it for myself. I did it for you, the listener, the viewer. And now it's your turn. I'm passing the baton over to you. The book comes out next week, January 20th. So you'll be able to that was the ebook, by the way. And it's not even the paperback or the hardcover. Those won't be released until next week, which is January 20th. So think about that. Number one in our category before the book ever comes out, and only the ebook has been available until now, until January 20th. So the people have spoken, yes, and you're going to see more of an awakening come across the board. The other thing is there's a movement behind that. Remember, I said that we have to unite and take action. So there's a movement that's behind it, that's in development stages now. It's and it basically keeps the book alive on a daily basis. It's a community. It's a destination for you to go to. So that's really what's going on. And as the American public, and by the way, this also applies. The book is written not just to Americans, but to all free people. Canada, UK, even Chinese that want to be free and get away and get out from underneath this horrible oppression and horrible economy and so on. So back to you, RC.
So Casey, thank you for that. And I'm excited to hear, and by the way, as you're watching this, you need to go and you need to order the book. It is a survival guide. So when we say book, we do that because that's a commonly accepted term and they sell those on Amazon. But Casey is absolutely right. This is most certainly a survival guide, and it's going to be an awakening for you and for everybody that you share it with. Casey, when we talked last week, one of the things we said is, if you're going to get one, you should get a couple and share them with the people that you love meaningfully and say, look, you need to read this thing. You really need to understand what's going on here. So we strongly encourage you guys to do that. And on the ticker below, you'll see that the website, theredtsunami.com, is there. It's also going to be on the show notes for this episode as well. So I strongly encourage you to do that as soon as possible. Pre-orders help to move the mission forward. And Casey, I'm saying that because yes, you will sell books, but more importantly, when we drive people like that, we also build awareness, and the NSA search engines and algorithms pick it up. And that's what we really need to do in I think, turning the cannon the other way to fight this battle. So with that said, I want to open the floor for you because we've talked about the challenges. We talked about why you wrote the book and everything like that. I'd like to talk about all the awesome solutions that you and the team have put together as we fight this battle, starting with the book. Let's talk more about the community. I'm just going to open the floor to you and just please have at it. Let's talk solutions.
Well, solutions are, you have to understand the problem first. You have to be able to connect the dots to understand the problem. And then once you understand the problem, you know how to address it. I'll give you three gotchas, give yous out of the book. Number one, stop buying Chinese goods and services and Hong Kong. That's the best start because all you're doing is accelerating your own destruction. Number two, fly the American flag in an act of defiance to the enemy. Fly it everywhere, your car, your house, your backpack, in your underwear, okay? That's a marketing thing, I guess, merch. And number three, foreign influence. the Chinese Communist Party does not allow our apps in their country. They don't allow us in their country to lobby their businesses, their government. They don't allow us to buy land off, farmland and land outside of military bases. They don't allow us to buy their water plants, which CCP's done several in the U.S. So, and we certainly can't bribe their officials, but we allow that in the United States. So we have to ban foreign influence. And if you expect our elected officials, who many are compromised, and we call those captured elites, both in government and in business. If you think they're going to shut down their addiction, it's not going to happen. So the only way out of this, and it's the final way out of this, is with every individual. So everybody must buy the book. If you buy one book and read one book in your lifetime, it is this book. I can't say that strongly enough, but don't buy just one. And if you buy the ebook, you're going to want the hard copy, because the ebook could be taken down at any time. And that's not a marketing issue. We all know about shadow banning and all that stuff, and that's all in the horizon. Incidentally, I've done 2 TEDx talks, and I was extremely censored on what I could say. And by the way, they're not my best talks, because can you think about being censored and you can't say this, 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 and this, and this? 3 sentences in your mind, you're trying to keep it all together and link everything together and to be able to put that forward. So if I'm being censored, that means you're being censored. So anyway, get many of the books, several books, give them to family, all your family members, extended family, friends, neighbors, and get a couple extra books to give people on the other side of the aisle that may not see the world the way that you do, because they're being played just like you are as well. And I've actually seen it. I've talked to people on the hard left and far left, and over 3 discussions or 3 presentations over 2 years, I've actually watched them come up mostly to center, because they want this information just like everybody else does. They're Americans and they want the same thing we want as well, meaning the people on the right, the people on the left, and the people on the center. Incidentally, I'm more of a centrist, if that's of interest to the audience. So we're in this war together, and it's only going to be fixed when we get informed, unite, and take action. Your government hasn't helped you. This is not a military operation, so they're not here to protect you. And in fact, they're way behind the curve, because they still think in conventional war methods, not this whole unrestricted war, which is also called asymmetric war, irregular war, all these other things. So that's the biggest message I can give you. I wrote the book, I did the work, and now I'm passing the baton off to you.
Casey, thank you so much for everything you're doing. We were talking before we started recording the show today, and you said I'm running ragged doing interviews nonstop. And thank you for stepping up and standing in the gap. Juliana and I do the same. Have bag will travel is our adage. We'll go talk to anybody who wants to become more informed or wants to learn how to fight and win these battles. So we certainly appreciate the work that you're doing. And again, I strongly encourage everyone, go to theredtsunami.com, pre-order the book. If you're watching this after, get to work and order the book. You can find it on Amazon. Also help and contribute to the community that Casey and his team are building. We are a part of that mix. We're proud to be a part of that mix, and you guys should be too. And as we always tell people when we present, you could change all of this tomorrow with your relationships, your resources, and your efforts. So we strongly encourage you to do it. Casey Fleming, thank you again for joining us on the Watchman Brief and Rip from the Headlines, my friend.
Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure.
Guys, thank you for watching. You can find all things Watchman Action and Sherlock, by the way, at watchmanaction.org. That's watchmanaction.org. Until next time, so long.